Welcome back to Canndid Conversations. I'm your host, Kieran Bowden, and today I'm talking to one of my favourite people in the world, Gary Piper, our Sales Director at Barrow McCann Group.
Hi, Kieran. Thanks for inviting me to talk to you.
That's brilliant. Today, what I wanted to explore with you is some of the things that are really impacting retailers at grassroots, in their stores, in their environments. And the first thing that I'd like to talk about today is something we hear about in the news all the time. It's shrink, it's the challenge of cybersecurity and all of that. What's really going on, Gary?
Gosh, I mean, threats. You're talking about big threats, aren't there? Then, and actually, you said quite a bit of it. I mean, it falls into three key parts. The online cyber. I mean, we've seen it's everywhere, but it's getting bigger and bigger, and I will maybe cover some of that later as to reasons why. The physical, the on-site leakage and shrinkage, again, we're seeing lots of that, aren't we? With retail trust reports are saying that they're up fivefold on what they were a year ago. And then linked to that is then the security of the associate, the staff protection, and the duty of care. So it's been, that's all at the base level. Those are real-time threats that have reached board level pretty much across the industry, I would say.
Absolutely. And these are all things that are kind of interconnected, aren't you? You can't just deal with one of those things in isolation. Fraud is another thing that comes into mind. What do we need to do as a retailer to try and help combine these things?
Well, right, okay. There's a lot in that. And there's also the infamous AI as well, as a part to play within all of that. There's a lot of data, a lot of information, and a lot of systems within a retail store now. The old days of just a point of sale unit and a cashier, and that's it, is completely changed. There's as much technology off the till as there is on the till, or any kind of checkout. So what really needs to be done is the collaboration of bringing all of that together. And as I say, AI helps, but AI is an enabler and seen as an enabler, but there's a lot of root cause stuff that needs to be dealt with first, because at the moment, quite a lot of these systems are in silos, and trying to bring that data together is a real challenge. And then you've got to bring the data together, but then you've got to have that platforms and the infrastructure to be able to manage that and deliver that. And that's a separate problem again.
So what you're saying is really retailers have to invest in their core infrastructure to help get some of this data collaboration off the ground. But you mentioned AI there as an enabler. I mean, this year, from things that I've read, AI and AI companies that are sort of leading the market in that space are actually creating another pinch point, because they're not necessarily helping with the availability of new technologies.
Oh, and the supply chain. No, they're not.
Supply chain.
Yeah, no, there was supply chain. There's multiple supply chain issues. I think we were here just not so long ago talking about the perfect storm globally, of the demands of AI on chipset and memory, linked with the problems there are in the Middle East, and the shipping channels and the shipping. And what's happened is the volatility of the cost, then of supply chain. And that's impacting not only tomorrow's aspirations of the retailer, but also to keep today's platforms working. And the bottom line is that you can look at AI as much as you want and come up with these ideas and visions, but unless you've got a platform that works, that can deliver that, there's no point. It's just go back to basics. So when we talk about supply chain, the volatility is incredible. We're seeing a 25% increase on memory chips every quarter on quarter. And the OEMs are forecasting this for 2.5, 3 years. This isn't a problem that's going away. And it's causing problems on today's infrastructure, because actually the cost of just keeping the support going and keeping the older kit running, and actually retailers squeezing as much potential out of it they possibly can, at the same time, meaning they're more vulnerable and they can fail more. It's a
perfect storm.
Yes, it is.
And I'll come back to that point on support in a minute. And one thing I heard this morning, for example, just recently, was the conflict in the Middle East at the moment. I didn't realize that helium was such an important component part in the creation of semiconductors, and about 65% of these come from South Korea, and they're forecasting that almost there's going to be a shutdown for a few months just because of helium not being able to get out of the source countries in the Middle East, which is again going to have that knock on people's ability to just get stuff done. So the third area that we've touched on a couple of things already. The third area is about, if you're a technologist working in a retailer, you're being asked to kind of surface all this data, all this capability in lots of different ways on lots of different platforms to help engage the customer to keep ahead of the competition. What challenges is that facing?
Huge challenges. Collaboration, again, it's collaboration, integration of all these data sets and all these technology stacks. And bringing that together is the starting point, really is the starting point. And then it's about, how does the consumer want to engage? Yeah. And that brings another challenge to get it all together, because the outside of the retail shop technology stack that consumers are using, they just naturally expect to be able to see that and use that within their shopping experience. Okay. Well, that then causes a whole load more challenges, because actually what's then happening is you've got the retailer taking their investment, let's say spread it over 5 years, maybe some retailers 7, 8, 10 years. The consumer engagement shifts within 2. Yeah. And just trying to manage that and manage all of that through just makes it all the more challenging, from the OEM to the software, to the data management, to the actual user and the physical hardware. Bringing that together. It's collaboration. Start with small bites, I think, is where I've seen success, and not try and change the world overnight. Start with small bites, prioritize what you're bringing together, lock those in, and then start to bolt on.
These platforms don't naturally necessarily work.
Don't.
Android doesn't work with enterprise necessarily. Correct. So you have to have that connective tissue.
And the classic is Windows and Android.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you've got in a store environment, you could have 20, 30 different solution sets. You know, a third or half of them on Windows and the rest on Android. And then the retailer goes, well, I want all of that together when it comes to my point of sale solution. Well, you haven't got an OEM out there that wants to really naturally do that at the moment. So, but, you know, if it was easy, we wouldn't be in a job, would we?
No, exactly. I said I'd come back to support. I'll pause that for a second. So the last point I think we'll cover here is about support. Now, support used to be optional. Remote support especially used to be optional. And then we got to 2020 and COVID, and then it became the only option, which I think really elevated the usefulness of remote support technology. Now, as we've talked about all of these systems that need to talk together, remote support's becoming even more important. How important is it now?
Well, I liken it to exactly the same period from COVID. All of a sudden, people started working from home.
Yeah.
Now it's the norm. And in fact, it's not the norm. It's almost a requirement to get your job done. Yeah, because you get so much more done by cramming all your meetings into Teams, etc., etc. And everybody's naturally doing it. Remote support's pretty much the same kind of concept. If you look at it from the full standard COVID environment, the biggest challenge with remote support is, as you bring all the endpoints together and you're monitoring and you're getting all of that data, what you are also doing is you're spreading the exposure and vulnerability to cyber threats, which weirdly pushes remote support up another level. Yeah. And so security is I think you were saying yourself just the other day, is that security is now a boardroom topic. Yeah. And not somebody in a dark corner that it's chucked in with networks. It's a proper issue. So remote support is here. It's not only here to stay. We're going to see AI over the years really have a huge impact, to the degree where we'll be completely predictive support. Yeah, we'll know what's going on. We'll know when things break before anybody. The machines will know when things break before anybody human does, if that makes sense.
I think that's a nice nirvana to end on there, that everything will be self-healing, self-fixing. So let's keep our fingers crossed for our retail colleagues that is the case. And for now, let's leave it there. Thanks for joining in today, and join us on the next episode of Canndid Conversations.